I think you, Lawrence, individually and your podcast are more responsible for rekindling the excitement of high intensity training, spreading really sound evidence-based exercise, and bringing the HIT community together. You are more responsible for this than any single individual outside of Arthur Jones. You have an insight to more people's business than anybody on earth. There's no one more involved in HIT businesses than you are. And so we're all kind of, most of your listeners are running a business. You're the one that interacts with all of us. And so you have a unique insight.
Lawrence Neal here, and welcome back to High Intensity Business, your one-stop shop for growing your HIT business and fueling your passion for high intensity training. Today is episode number 500, and we have a different kind of episode. To celebrate episode 500, Discover Strength CEO Luke Carlson, who many of you will know quite well, is going to interview me and flip the script, which I am both excited, honored, and nervous about all at the same time. Luke, thank you so much for doing this, and great to see you as always.
Well, Lawrence, thank you for letting me do this, and congratulations on 500 episodes. And I was kind of doing the math on this. Is this about 10 years? Are we coming up on 11 years of you recording the podcast?
Yes, good question. I think it's like 2013 I started, somewhere around there. 2013, 2014 was the first episode with McGuff, so it's just over. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Congratulations. And I don't know the data on this. You probably do, Lawrence. I think the average podcast lasts for like 7 episodes or something like that. So congratulations on longevity. I mean, 500 episodes coming up on 12 years, truly incredible. And I just want to kick off by saying, I think you, Lawrence, individually and your podcast are more responsible for the rekindling around the excitement of high intensity training, spreading really sound evidence-based exercise, and bringing the HIT community together. You are more responsible for this than any single individual outside of Arthur Jones. I mean, you have had such a profound impact on all of our lives. And so our community, this evidence-based kind of HIT strength training world is better because of you. So I'm excited to celebrate you during this episode and kind of learn about how you think about the last 500 episodes and even the direction that you are heading in the future. So thanks for the incredible contribution, how you've showed up as a servant to all of us.
Well, thank you. That's just amazing to hear that. I don't feel that's deserved. And it's just unbelievable to hear someone of your caliber say that. And obviously I get a lot of nice messages from people frequently. So it's great. And I know I've helped impact a lot of people, but obviously I should thank you and all the guests for just distilling and sharing such wonderful information, whether it's about training or business, which has been extremely helpful to all my listeners.
Well, before I get into my first question, Lawrence, one of the people that you've had an impact on is Fred Hahn. And he just sent me this message. He knew this was your 500th episode, and he said, 500th episode. He said, Lawrence, your passion and dedication to the HIT community is outstanding and has helped me, so this is Fred speaking, in many ways to get and stay on track with progressing onward and upward with slow burn personal training studio successes. You should be proud of your hard work. Quite commendable. It's an honor to call you a friend. And that comes from Fred Hahn.
Oh, well, thank you so much,
okay,
Fred.
Yeah. So my first question, I think, and I've thought this for years, the whole reason that this works, the whole reason that your podcast works is that you have been able to show up as this humble student. And I think this almost disarms your guest and allows them to truly show up as an authority. You must have made a conscious decision to assume this posture of, well, I'm going to act like a student and I'm going to take my ego out of it. And I'm going to put my guest up on a pedestal and learn from them. So tell us about this posture of being a humble student as a host.
Wow, amazing question. You should have a podcast, Luke. Oh, wait, you do. So great. Yeah. Do you know what? It's for 2 things that come to mind. The first thing is just pure natural curiosity. All right. I've always been a characterized by my friends as being very, very curious. When I was at my best friend's wedding, when he did his speech, his groom speech, the first thing he said is, "I just love your curiosity. You're so curious. Like you're always trying to understand every area of life that you're interested in." And it was just so interesting. That was like the first thing he said. So that's where it starts. It's like a authentic curiosity to learn, right? To understand someone else's perspective. And it's not just limited to our field, right? I have it all the time to an annoying extent where I have upset people by being too nosy and too curious. Um, and even my fiance has to constantly remind me, like, you can't ask that question, that's too private, that's too personal. So yeah, so that's where that comes from, I guess. And then the second thing is I felt like, and obviously having done 500 podcasts, there's some where I was like, oh, that wasn't very good, or I wasn't particularly good, or I didn't get most out of that guest or whatever. And whenever that happens is when I'm not being that person. It's when I'm not, like, maybe my ego's got the better of me and I'm trying to assert some authority or that I know what I'm talking about. But whenever I do that, I don't enjoy it. And I just don't think it comes across all that well. So yeah, it's also just, I think I enjoy the episodes far more if I embody who I am and that curiosity. And I think it's just a way better content, which I think you've highlighted there. And I think it's just a good way to be, right? We should all be, a curious student, right? I learned a lot of this from you, like being a great listener and how you've really worked on being an awesome listener. And you're one of the best I know at that, Luke. So you've really inspired me on that as well, to stay on that path, I think. Yeah.
One of the superpowers that I think you have is, I think one of the few superpowers that's common among, to me, exceptional leaders. And I'm going to say exceptional people, but I truly see it in leaders. And it's the willingness to ask the obvious question. And sometimes I would articulate that as the dumb question. I worked for a particular leader who, in a room, he would ask a question that would show that he just doesn't have a clue. But there was 3 other people in the room that wanted to know the answer to that question also, but our ego prevented us from saying, "Hey, I don't know what that word even means. Can you explain that?" And he taught me, just from observation, me observing him, is that, oh, be the person in the room that doesn't care if you're perceived as bright. Just ask the question. And I've listened to, of your 500 episodes, I think I've probably listened to 485 of them. And I continually watch you ask the question that I'm thinking, I don't know what that means. And then you ask that question and you go there. And sometimes it takes a sacrifice of ego to ask that obvious question. So thank you for asking the obvious question, and in doing so, really demonstrating, I think, a superpower as a leader, and clearly for you as a podcaster.
Yeah.
Now, I think
Thank
my
you for that
favorite
reminder,
Alex
by the
Hormozy
way.
quote.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite Alex Hormozy kind of, I'm going to say quote, but it's really concept. And Alex Hormozy didn't come up with it. He talks about it. There's a wonderful author, Josh Medcalf, who talks about the same concept. But the way Hormozy words it, he says, the work works on you more than you work on it. And so that's what Hormozy says. Josh Medcalf, who wrote a book called Chop Wood, Carry Water, and he basically says, you're building your own house. So at the end of the day, the work that you do is not for a boss. It's not for a customer. It's not for the marketplace. It's for you. The work that you do shapes who you are. So again, Hormozy's interpretation is the work works on you more than you work on it. As you continue to chip away at your craft, you change as a human being. So how has the work changed you, and why is this work meaningful to you?
Another great question. Yeah, it's funny because occasionally I'll go back and listen to my very first episode with Doug, and you can hear like the nerves in my voice. And at the start, I say, "Doug, is it okay if I call you Doug, or do I call you Dr. McGuffle?" And yeah, so I think it's helped me in a number of ways. It's helped me to increase my confidence in any speaking domain, right? So just recently, I've started to try and pick up my game with content, right? Doing some reels on Instagram and that kind of thing. And I just found it comes quite natural to me to just speak at camera with a script pointers or no script. In fact, sometimes I prefer just being completely improvised. And I don't think I would have been able to do that before without having done all these podcasts, right? So I think, yeah, there's multiple skills that's developed in me. One would be, I just, my general communication, I think is better. I think I'm slightly more articulate. Although I have noticed that to wax and wane. I'll listen back to some episodes and be like, you weren't on your game there in terms of your communication. Maybe there's reasons for that, sleep and what's happening in my personal life or whatever. But I think the trend is good. So yeah, I think I 100% agree with that statement. It's definitely improved me in a number of ways. Yeah, like just speaking, communication, skills with video, uh, conversational skills, like which would suppose be a strength of mine. Just building relationships and being quite social. It's probably why I did quite well in sales. But I think that I've been able to hone that more and just see where I can go with people and understand better where I'm going down a path where they may not be comfortable, and then also just getting better at getting the good stuff, which is again just repetition, right? Just doing the work over and over and over again. So those are the first things that come to mind.
Yeah. Okay. So we can't do a 500th episode without talking about some of your most memorable episodes or even memorable moments. And I probably annoy you over the years talking about, I remember when this person was on your podcast and they said this. So many of these moments have stuck with me. So give us a few of those moments, and it can be content that you thought, wow, this is really going to be valuable for my listener, or even this is a sign that the podcast has arrived because I have this person on the podcast. And maybe that was the case in your very first episode because you had Doug McGuff. So when you think about this longevity, 12 years, 500 episodes, give us some of your most memorable episodes or moments.
Yeah, well, I just, as you said, that opened up my podcast list on the website just so I could look at the titles, and that might help jog my memory. It's really hard to answer that because there's been so many. And if you remember, in the midst of all this, I had children, which practically erased my entire memory through a excessive sleep deprivation and stress. So it's sometimes difficult for me to remember things. I'll tell you what, there was just a couple that come to mind. So I was going through some personal challenges related to just, I guess, body dysmorphia, right? Not as many of us do in strength training, not being content with our results and that kind of thing. And, I'd gone away with some friends and they commented on that I needed to put on weight and this kind of thing. And so I was having a bit of a personal, issue there. And I jumped on a podcast with McGuff and we called it Should I Bulk Up? Right. And that was, it's just the first one that comes to mind. But that was very compelling to me because I think obviously this debate continues about, is there a way to unlock more muscle mass? Is the key, to increase nutrition significantly and tweak this training protocol here and there. And it was really profound to me because he was kind of saying like, trying to bulk up with nutrition is like pushing with a rope, you got your genetic limit. And it was really liberating. So it was like, why am I obsessing about this? And it was just a very, very raw and personal conversation I felt between me and Doug. We just so happened to record it for the podcast. And I had a fantastic reaction to that. And I think I would hope that that would also help a lot of people who are in a similar position to me, of which there are many. So that's the first kind of health one that comes to mind. I got to say, Luke, I'm just saying this because you're interviewing me, but from a podcast point of view, you've just been amazing. And, we just recorded a podcast on the workout is the marketing or similar topic, which I think is extremely important, right? And there was a one we did similar to that a long, long time ago. And I called it something like how to generate more revenue in your business. It's where you basically broke down, like, this is how you differentiate your business with the 3 uniques and how important it is to have a target market. And we taught some tactics, but it was a very comprehensive podcast on marketing. And I had people email me to tell me that that was more valuable than their MBA, And so from a business point of view, you just definitely added the most value there and given me so many. I mean, it's not a podcast that goes by, Luke, where I don't have an epiphany on business with yourself. And so I'm extremely grateful to do all those with you. I'm just trying to think if there's any others. Obviously, I've had some big names on, I've had David Allen, getting things done and Marxism. And this was back in the day when it was much broader. And obviously, as you know, I decided to narrow it. When I first started the podcast, there was not that many podcasts. And we used to get over 30,000 downloads a month, or around 30,000 downloads a month. I shouldn't exaggerate. And over time, and I've seen this with lots of friends of mine who have popular podcasts, there's lots of podcasts have popped up. So it's more difficult to compete when you're so broad, right? I mean, Joe Rogan's like an outlier. Chris Williamson, they're outliers in my opinion. They're very good interviewers. I mean, Joe Rogan is extremely good. People don't understand just how skilled he is. He has no notes. It's all just natural. And obviously the work's worked on him. But anyway, I was more narrow and I narrowed it down over time. I'm just trying to think if I don't want to miss any like key memories. I guess I'm just looking at one now. I did a podcast with John Little, episode 65, How to Find Your Purpose. And as many know, John Little is not just a strength training expert. He's a philosopher and an incredible author, and he co-authored Body by Science and has authored many, many books since. And he did this podcast and we called it How to Find Your Purpose. And it just got really philosophical and it was really profound to me. Like I came away from it thinking about it for a long time afterwards. And look, I don't want to obviously I can't mention every single one, but there's just so many. I mean, episodes with Dr. James Steele where, he's just making some really strong arguments. Frankly, the strongest arguments that have ever been made in our space on just how little difference these changes to training really make on things we care about. You know how it is, Luke. Everyone's got that story of when they put on 20 pounds of pure muscle by doing some special routine. And then they forget the fact that it happened during puberty, or, and maybe they exclude the fact that they were on some kind of performance enhancing drug. And what I love about James Steele and obviously James Fisher and many of the research I've had on the show do this so well is they just look at the evidence. What does the preponderance of evidence support? And obviously that's getting even more exciting now with the big data that James Steele and Fisher are working with. So yeah. Anyway, those are the first, so many more, but those are the ones that come to mind straight away for me.
Yeah, and I think all of your listeners have watched you continue to be shaped and to watch your perspectives on training and business evolve. Like as you've recorded 500 episodes, your listener, like me, I've watched you learn and evolve in your thinking. And I watch you have these rich conversations with guests, and I can see the influence of Dr. James Steele come through in what you're saying, and Skylar's influence on you. And you have shown up truly, not just as an interviewer, but truly as a student. You've absorbed so much in 500 episodes. Speaking of these researchers, in preparation for this podcast, Dr. James Fisher sent me this. He said, Lawrence, what an incredible journey you're on and a true testament to your commitment. Even though I'm not sure you've ever read a research paper cover to cover, you've still done an exceptional job of engaging a community who are seemingly infinitely enthusiastic about strength training in the academic research and scientific evidence. Thank you for having me as a guest to discuss my own research and more. And thank you for all the things you do to support and promote strength training as a whole to the HIT community. That comes from Dr. Fisher.
Oh, well, thank you, James. Well, look at you, Luke. You've really done your prep, haven't you? I appreciate this so much.
Yeah. Well, there's more coming, maybe, Lawrence. There's more coming. So exciting. We look at the last 500 episodes. If you're a listener for a long time, we understand that the podcast has morphed. You started off just talking about high intensity training, like how do we execute these workouts? And then every once in a while, you had something that was more business or personal development focused. And then you made a conscious decision to, well, no, let's focus on the business of high intensity training. And you'll still have a guest to talk about strength training research or how to actually execute a workout. And sometimes when it's the business owner, they're talking about a workout. So we're still getting exercise, but you've made a shift toward business. But over the last 500 episodes, this really makes you positioned as an expert on how to do a high intensity training workout, but also an expert in running a HIT business. So my questions going forward, my next few are going to be kind of about that. So let's go the 3 principles, just 3 of them for running a thriving hit business, and I'm just going to tell you where we're going to go here. I want 3 principles. If you could just give us 3 that we should focus on to run a great hit business, what are those 3? Then I'm going to say, what are the 3 tactics for a hit business? Like, go do this right now, this specific thing. And then from there, we'll talk about exercise. So 3 principles that you could impart on the hit business leader listening right now.
Yeah. I knew you're going to ask this kind of question, and I'm going to try my best not to just reiterate what you've been saying all the while. Three principles, in no particular order.
And Lawrence, as you answer this, Lawrence, I'm going to interject. The reason I think your answer is so special, why it's so meaningful, is you have an insight to more people's business than anybody on earth. There's no one more involved in hit businesses than you are. And so we're all kind of, most of your listeners are running a business. You're the one that interacts with all of us. And so you have a unique insight. So that's why I think your answer to this is so special. So you have the insight, but you also have one of the strongest filters I've ever seen. Like, you understand, you can listen to all the different perspectives, and the strength here is your filter. So I can't wait to hear your answer based on your filter and all of your experience working with all of us.
Yeah. I mean, just a quick aside. I think what's really makes it difficult in high intensity training business is our lack of data. And I think that one of the reasons I ask you to come on the podcast so much, Luke, and we do so much together, is because you have the biggest sample size and you do the best job measuring stuff. So I think when we hear tactics from yourself, I'm not avoiding the question, just building up to it. They're far more useful because they've been tested over so many people over such a long period of time and measured accurately, i.e. retention. And so that's why, I found more and more lately, and this is drawing on maybe on Alex Hormozi's work, we've had to go outside of the space to get more strategies and tactics that are kind of evidence-based. Obviously, the next step, and what we're trying to do more in high intensity business in the community, is build that data up, right? Is get a better understanding across lots of people, like what works, and track it. It's difficult, but over time, we're getting more and more clarity on that. So the first thing, obviously, is client experience, right? The first principle, right, is the workout, which we covered recently. This is, again, a pattern across everyone, right? Everyone who's successful in our space. And by successful, obviously you can define that differently, but it's, sort of maximizing their own capacity for sessions or whatever it is that they want to do on a weekly basis, or their team. And yeah, it's about the workout experience, right? It's about everything that you shared in our last podcast about caring more about the client's workout and results and experience than they do, and being actually obsessed and embodying that and never losing that and being consistent over the long term, because we talked about how people get stuck into a rut. And then being obsessed with feedback and really just being obsessed with everything from the moment they walk in the door to the moment they leave. Constantly sharpening the saw, right? Having a great understanding of the service you're delivering, and always being a student there too, like being the guide in front of the customer, but just behind the scenes, always learning, right? And I think, to your point, that's why we're always going to cover stuff on science, the science behind training and the latest research, as well as tangential health and wellness topics, because it's about the business is about the workout. So this helps to constantly innovate that, I guess is what I'm saying. So that's number one, is the workout experience. Because obviously you get the workout right, you get the client experience right, you're going to get referrals. Side note, one thing I have learned, and this is kind of a theory, is I think I see a lot of new people coming into high intensity training business, and obviously they don't have the reps, excuse the pun, they don't have the practice. So they need to lean more on promotion in the beginning, right? Now, side note, we should all be promoting all the time, which is another conversation, maybe something we'll touch in a moment, which none of us do enough of, or very few of us do. But I think in the beginning, frankly, a lot of people new to high intensity training business just don't have the skill because they have not had enough practice or have not done enough education, right? And so it takes time. So I think in lieu of that, one has to do more promotion in the beginning, right? And understand that if you're retaining, I mean, it's just my opinion, obviously, but what I see, if you're retaining people in the beginning and not necessarily getting referrals, you're doing okay. And then as you get better, you'll start generating more of those referrals. And that's what I see among some of our members, is it can take a little bit more time. So have to lean more on promotion in the beginning. Second principle for me would probably be just being like completely obsessed with the customer. You know, Jeff Bezos is famous for saying that in his Amazon letters, right? Just forget about the competition, just completely obsessed with your customer. You know, understand what it is they want, understand what they need, constantly talk to them. Now, don't always obviously act on everything your customer says because they might not be your ideal customer. And there are, you know, you need to obviously identify that and make sure that you're not, when someone says add a, you know, an exercise bike in a studio and you focus on strength training, you perhaps shouldn't always say yes to something like that, right? Just being clear on like who you listen to and listen to your ideal client. Yeah, go ahead, Luke.
His paraphrase on that, and I love it, is be obsessed with the customer, not with your competition. Be obsessed with innovating for your customer, but don't ever ask your customer what they want because they just don't have a clue, or maybe they can't articulate it. So think on behalf of how you could serve your customer better all the time. Pay attention to their lives and how they interact with your brand and your product and service. But don't just sit down and say, hey, what can we do better for you? And expect to get a good answer that you can actually implement. And that's what you were saying. I think that he's articulated that wonderfully.
Yeah. Thanks for buying me time on the final principle. But yeah, no, you did a great job elaborating on that. I appreciate that. And this is actually, I should take a back a step. This is probably almost the most important thing, which is strategy, right? Which is prioritizing. I listened to a wonderful, like a audio course, I guess you could call it, or an audio program by Sam Ovens, who's the founder of School, right? Very successful entrepreneur. And he just made such a good point. He's like, and you'll love this, Luke. It's like whenever, you know, he was on a call where he was helping customers and they came onto the call to ask him questions. And rather than asking questions, they make statements or start by telling a story. This happens a lot in our space. It just shows they don't know what they want. They're not clearly defined their priorities and their objectives. And I see this a lot, like people asking questions about marketing and what they should do and all these things. And I feel stupid sometimes because I just say the same thing. I'm like, well, what do you want? Like, what are you trying to do with this business? How much money do you want to make? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? And it doesn't mean they have to implement all of EOS, right? The book traction, which we talk about often on this show. I'm not saying that, but just being clear on what you want. And that's not an easy question to answer. So you have to go away and, you know, journal on it and just sit there with a pad and paper and think about it for a while. But unless we know that, we don't know what your filters are for making decisions. We don't know who your ideal client is. We don't know what the right amount of sessions you should be doing is or should be aiming for. We don't know where to focus in your business and what to say no to. So once you have that filter, it's extremely powerful because then you can be like laser focused. And you know, it's funny because quite often I think if I describe that to people, you know, I can't remember who it said. I think Einstein said you should spend if you spend an hour on a problem, you should spend 55 minutes figuring out what the problem is. And then by spending that much time figuring out what it is, you'll basically solve the problem. I butchered that. It's something like that. And so what's quite funny is when you say to people, hey, what do you want? They kind of answer their own question and they know what they need to do. It becomes clearer. So having strategy, whether that's following vision component in the book traction, so people can take action on that now, or just sitting down and saying, what do I want? What do I want to turn this into? What do I want to be in 5 years or 10 years? And then working backwards.
Yeah, those are 3 wonderful principles. So that was a wonderful answer. Now, give us 3 tactics. So we're a HIT business leader listening to this right now, and we want to grow. And to your previous point, we probably should know what we want to grow to. But if we just want to grow over the next quarter, add clients, what should we do from a tactic standpoint? Just 3 things that we could deploy over the next few months.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, again, I owe a lot of this to you. 3 things first, 3 things come to mind is having a system in place of continuously improving the workout. right? And the customer experience. Whatever ongoing learning that is. I mean, you have great ritual yourself. You do your 2-3 hours reading every weekend on exercise. Having those systems in place, that time you dedicate every week to just sharpening the saw and just getting better at delivering workouts, I think is obviously super important, because you get great at the workout, you get great customer experiences, you're going to generate more referrals and retain more customers. Tactically, again, talking mostly about growth here, promotion, right? In terms of what marketing. So I think that the lowest hanging fruit stuff for a lot of our colleagues is just actually reaching out to our immediate network. And as you know, the cool thing about our business is you don't need to do all that much to actually generate the customers that you need for most of us in terms of your desired number of sessions. And when you combine that with just delivering great workouts and getting referrals, you'll probably be absolutely fine. Obviously, if you want to build a discover strength, it's slightly different, and you probably have to do a bit more in terms of both internal and external marketing, right? So yeah, it sounds so simple to say, but just having a system where you reach out to your entire warm network, and obviously again, Hormozy's done a great job recently of talking about this and packaging it and describing how we go about it. But having a system where we reach out one-on-one personally to our immediate network and building those relationships, buying those people in for free workouts, and if they decline, asking if they know anyone. But the key thing is consistency. And I see this all the time, Luke, in the community. People say, I need more customers. I'm like, well, have you tried doing this? It's free. Yes, it requires time, but you have time right now. And then they do it and they practice it consistently, and they'll just bring a lot of clients in for, for sessions, for free workouts and increased sessions. So Julian Masler calls this fools, friends, and family. And it's just going to, when people say, well, where do I start? It's like, well, look at all your contacts on your social media, on your personal Facebook, on your Instagram, on your email, your personal email, on your phone, just your phone contacts, your client email list, right? Your Facebook page for your business, Facebook groups. Steve Baffume has built his business up to, I think, 65 sessions a week. And he's done a lot of it through like Facebook groups and just Facebook Messenger, right? Yeah, so that's the other tactic, would just be focusing. Obviously, there's more, but that's just one. I just don't want to overwhelm people. That's one tactic that works really well, at least in the beginning. And maybe it's something that a lot of our colleagues can revisit and create a system around to start doing. And then another tactic, while talking about growth, I think, again, this would be something I would first learn from you, really, Luke, is having really good reactive and proactive systems for retention, right? Because retaining customers is the most important thing. And I think that's going to complement our ability to generate referrals as well. It's just having really good systems for that. Reactive being, if someone stops showing up, what is it that you do in your business to get them in as quickly as possible? And then proactive being, I guess, a big one being education. So, a lot of our colleagues don't do content, right? And for the longest time, Luke, as you know, I was kind of anti-social media, which is a longer story, but that was more about a personal issue with how distracting these platforms can be. But let's not, forget, from a business point of view, they can be very valuable. And content is extremely powerful in terms of obviously educating our prospects and being part of this proactive retention process I mentioned, but it also provides lots of value outside the workout. And I think that probably contributes to retention. And we see that in other industries. So I don't know why it wouldn't be true in ours either. Today's episode is sponsored by Imagine Strength, the game changer in safe, simple, and effective high-intensity training machines. When it comes to HIIT, Imagine Strength is your go-to for intelligently designed, efficient, and affordable equipment. Their team is passionate about HIIT, and it shows in every piece they craft. So why are Imagine Strength the right choice? Number one, they tailor-make their equipment for HIIT studios. Number two, they provide cost-effective solutions for your business. And number three, they are committed to ongoing innovation and refinement. Ready to take your HIIT business to the next level? Visit imaginestrength.com to discuss your needs and find the perfect gear for your studio. Join the HIIT revolution of Imagine Strength and transform your workout experience today. Let's go. Is that satisfactory?
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, that was fantastic. I mean, that was
Okay.
like, you just gave us something all we can go execute on right now. And then big picture, we can look at your principles and say, hey, are we building it around those principles? Because those are foundational. Now let's talk about the workout. You've had literally hundreds of episodes on how to execute a workout. And you have been, like I've mentioned, you've shown up as this humble student. That's been your posture. But among the guests on your podcast, some people would advocate 3 to 4 exercises in a workout and training once a week. Some would advocate, 10 to 15 exercises in a workout. Some would do 1 set to failure and that's it. Some would say use some advanced overload techniques. Some would say compound movements primarily. Some would say you got to use single joint. You've had every conceivable take on high intensity training on your podcast, even elements like frequency. Where do you land right now on the elements of a great HIIT workout? And when I ask this, I do not mean to grow the business. I mean to really stimulate muscle strength and muscle hypertrophy. You listen to more researchers, you listen to more practitioners. What do you think the elements of a great workout are? And this doesn't have to be 3, this could be 5 to 10. What do you think is really important?
Oh, I'm going to try not to give an incredibly boring answer here, but I'm just not sure if that much variation in that template matters at all from an adaptation point of view, right? So, okay, are we just looking at what do I think would be the ideal workout for building more muscle mass over time? Is
Yeah.
that kind of, sorry for, yeah.
Let's say muscle mass and strength, muscle mass and strength.
Yeah, sure. I think you and I are probably quite aligned on this to a degree. I think that, okay, so I think that probably as long as we are, I'm not sure if it's optimal to just do like, multi-joint compound movements in a workout. I do think there is some value to doing more single joint for like getting more recruitment out of that specific muscle. So for that reason, I think there does need to be more comprehension. But then there's balancing it with the individual's capacity. Like even myself, I'm just doing like an N of 1. I find it difficult to do higher volume workouts. And I've sort of mentioned this on the podcast before. Sometimes I'm like, is it because I'm not personally trained, especially by like a Discover Strength trainer, right? And I'll make and maybe if I were, I'd be able to tolerate greater volumes. I'd be more motivated. For instance, when you train me virtually that time. But otherwise, I feel like actually I can give it more intensity if I have a more abbreviated workout. So I just tell you what I do now, and that I think is probably a good way of answering this. So right now, I do like a split routine, and I'll do vertical pull and so a chin up followed by a shoulder press, and vertical push, and then I will make sure that what do I do on that workout? And then I'll do a bicep curl. So I'll do some single joint. And I'll just make sure I'm not overwhelming the muscle groups across both workouts. So in the B routine, I'm doing more. Yeah. So this is current routine, right? So manual time static contraction, neck lateral left and right. It's funny. I do this from home because I don't look like a crazy person in the gym because I currently work out in a commercial gym, right? Followed by prone trunk extensions for the lower back. I miss the MedX lumbar so much, and I don't have one near me right now. Otherwise, I would definitely use that because I don't think there's any replacement for it. Then it's chin-ups. And by the way, sometimes it's single set to failure. Sometimes it's a rest pause. Then usually is a follow-up set, right? It just depends on how I feel in the moment. Chins into, so that would be a supinated grip, body weight only, plated shoulder press, a shoulder press machine, into dumbbell curls, split stance, into dumbbell lateral raise, into a prone leg curl, into abductor, right? So you can see how I'm splitting it. So then the other workout is time static contraction, neck flexion and extension, into a chest press, into seated row. So that's how I split things up like that. Into a tricep press down, into a leg press, into adductor, into leg extension, into heel raise. So I hit everything across the 2 workouts, but I split it, right? I find if I try to do full body, I just struggle with that. And maybe that is also speaking to the season of life I'm in, 2 young kids, a lot of stress, business stress, my own perhaps genetics and ability to tolerate that stress and recover appropriately, sleep, etc. So that's how I do it currently. And I honestly feel that that template would probably produce produce what it can for someone in terms of muscle mass or strength. I personally do not think training, if you were to put those into one workout and do it twice a week, I'm not convinced yet that would produce greater results, is how I feel. Does that answer the question fully, or do you want more or no?
No, how about kind of movement speed? What kind of cadence are you using?
So I normally just default to a 2-4, right? I love it all, right? I enjoy doing all sorts of different movement speeds, but right now I just keep it super simple. For me right now, the workout, again, I'm not in a place in my life where I'm like obsessed about optimizing everything. I'm almost like Skylar once said, keeping the table set. I mean, I'm still trying to improve every time and beat my last number of reps and improve my form and all the rest of it. But it's almost just about ticking the box and making it happen, because my obsession right now is growing high intensity business. And I'm almost like anything that detracts from that. I mean, I had Al Coleman offer to train me, a really, really generous offer. He presented to me on email. I mean, it's Al Coleman. Like, it would be amazing to be trained by him. But I'm just saying no to like everything. So I'm giving you more context than you've asked for, but I don't feel that's important. I just feel like right now it's like if I feel that actually do the minutia make much difference? Probably not. So as long as I'm doing that, what I described, then I'm probably getting what I can. So
yeah, well stated. So I want to understand, in a workout or even some other, let's just say health practices, what's the least hit thing that you do? So like if there's kind of this category or even like almost dogmatic approach to hit, what's the least hit thing that Lawrence Neal does that the rest of the classic hit people would say, what, Lawrence? Why are you doing that? I know mine is running marathons, right? Like I'm kicked out of the high intensity training community because I run a marathon. What's yours?
Do you know what's funny is actually right now I'm very like just like a high intensity training focus, because but before I was doing high intensity interval training. So I would there's a hill near my house, and I would jog to the hill and I would do like 3 or 4 sprints up the hill. It's very steep. And the idea, and I'm supposed to be doing that, right? It's part of my like goals for this year, but I've been really bad at doing it. I've got in my little goal sheet, either do high intensity interval training or basketball once a week. And I haven't done either of those things at all this year so far. So it's not really deliberate, but I have actually been following a very sort of traditional HIT paradigm with my whole approach to exercise. I don't do anything right now that the old guard or purists in our community would deem as being, counterproductive or whatever. I mean, I do everything that I think they'd all be happy to hear, which is lots of general movement. I've got 2 kids, so I'm always, on the weekends, we're going out in nature and for lots of carrying children, walking around, all that sort of thing. Strength train twice a week, as I described. And yeah, I'm not doing those other things. As I said, I did go through a stint 2 years ago of doing yoga once a week, which actually felt great. I actually really enjoyed that. I'm under no illusion that maybe, I don't know if it had much in the way of a physiological benefit, but just made me feel great, afterwards. I was also supporting a friend's business, but I actually really enjoyed doing it. So if I was doing all those things now, then you could say that was all the heresy that I'd be, up to. But these days I'd be quite happy with the fact that all I do is 2 workouts a week. And it's more I probably should be doing. Yeah.
Wonderful. So Lawrence, you actually alluded to this with Al. I want to know, over the next few years, this is a theoretical, hypothetical question. Who's the one person in our space that you would love to be trained by? And this person has to be living, so you can't say Arthur Jones, but maybe it's because you would learn from the actual session, or it's because the name of this person is significant and you just want to you want to be able to say you went through a workout with them at one point. So who's the one person you want to train you one-on-one?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And there's so many people in my space that I would love to be trained by our space. And I have been trained by some amazing people, right? Yourself, your colleagues at Discover Strength, incredible. Skylar Tanner. Uh, yeah, I had a workout with Skylar Tanner at Strength Forum, which was amazing. Thank you, Skylar. Um, Dwayne Wimmer put me through a great leg press. So who would I like? The first thing that comes to mind is probably Dr. Doug McGuff, right? I'd love to be trained by Doug. That'd be super cool. Fred Hahn as well, because he's obviously has very strict principles and the way he does things. And I'd really like to experience what that's like coming from him. I'm looking here all the names to see who really come to mind as someone. Oh, there's so many, like Bert, I'd love to go through his workout. Let me see if I'll come up with one more. Yeah, I think that. Oh, and probably Dr. Bryce Lee as well. I'd love to go through his, because he's so smart, right? His understanding of training and biomechanics and physiology is so impressive that I would love to hear how he thinks about programming my workout and that kind of thing. So yeah, that would be, those guys would be amazing. I mean, there's so many more, right? But those are ones that I'm looking at my list here thinking, yeah, that would be amazing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are wonderful answers. Okay, so let's talk about, and you've alluded to this throughout the podcast, you are balancing a lot. And so many of your listeners are balancing a lot. So for you, it's family, young kids, significant other, entrepreneurship, and you're not just running a small business, you're constantly trying to grow a small business, and the small business has evolved over time. Your own training and your own fitness that you're still passionate about. So give us a few of the tactics that help you balance it all. You alluded to one of them, that you're relentlessly focused, and one of Alex Hormozi's, I think, key takeaways is his definition of focus is it's just the quality and the quantity of the opportunities that you eliminate, the quality and quantity of the things that you say no to. So you are more focused if you say no to more things, and you are more focused if you say no to really cool, big things. That's his definition. So you kind of alluded to that, but how does Lawrence balance it all?
Yeah, amazing question. And this is something I struggle with a lot, and I'm still very much a student trying to do this. And it's actually why I think I have a real sort of kinship with those in the community who really want to build lifestyle businesses because they've got families and, maybe they don't want to work 16-hour days forever. And I get that. And it's trying to build that balance. For me, it's really, I guess, starts with kind of like strategy for life, right? It starts with an understanding of like, how do I want to spend my time, right? And what's most important. So right now, children aren't young for long, right? So, come early teens, they start to individuate. They don't want to know mom and dad as much anymore. Terrified about that, to be honest with you. Although that's all part of life, and so I always remember Dr. Jordan Peterson saying, miss young kids at your peril or something like that. So I never wanted to be one of these parents who work so much that they don't see their children. And then you only get that once, right? So very passionate about that. So that's almost like the positive constraints. If I'm looking at my calendar, like how am I spending my time? It's like, well, this is non-negotiable here, and here, like the weekends, bedtime, all these things, right? But I'm extremely passionate about business and having a huge impact and making high intensity business like just the best it can be. And then what I love about it as well, and you and I talked about this on a podcast some months back, is how great business is as a vehicle for personal development. All right. I see you and how mature you are and the way, just the little subtle things you do when we talk, just I don't know, just your maturity as a person. I don't mean to be so flattering here, but it is just, I can see how it's been a great vehicle for you. So you very much inspire me. That's not to say I want to build something like Discover Strength. Because Because I have to find that balance for me. But it's still like, I want to see what I'm capable of, I think is what I'm saying. Right. So it's like, for me, it's those two things are really important to me. And then there's my health. Right. So it really is just about, again, in this season of my life, just looking at my calendar and making sure that I'm allocating as much time as possible to those things, and then protecting it. Right. So like, you know, time with my fiance, and I know people are like, she's been your fiance for forever, Lawrence. It's like, yeah, well, we had children and we haven't got married yet. We're working on it. Just bear with us. So, so it's very important for me to invest in my relationship, and because when you have children, it can be challenging. You don't really have as much time together, one-on-one, that kind of thing. So then there's time where I'm constantly nurturing that garden, right, and watering grass there. And so I think that's a great way to live, is by kind of realizing what's really important to you, kind of like core values, I guess. And then filling up your calendar with those things first, and then whatever remains can go in, knowing that you've got your kind of life rocks, so to speak, right? Yeah, I think, and then I think just broadly speaking, like, okay, given that's my calendar and I probably work, I don't know, I probably work like 50, 55 hours a week, something like that. And I'd work more if I could, but again, it would conflict with those other things. So I think given that, and this is quite fresh in my head because I actually recorded a masterclass in the community on how to Forex productivity and destroy stress. It's a hyperbolic title, we called it. This is quite fresh in my mind, but it's really about, once you allocated that time to the business, how are you best going to use it? Now, I love Cal Newport's idea of give every minute a job, and don't have some amorphous block in the day where you just turn up, you just don't know what you're doing, right? Plan the day, plan tomorrow today, actually time block your entire day, that you know what you're doing every hour, so that when you turn up, you just execute, right? And I think that's even more important when you have limited resources, which we all do in our own way, but limited time to do what it is we want to do. So you have to be very clear on what activity is actually really important and going to get you closer to your goal. And then time block that, and just realize again that you can't do it all, and some things will have to be parked for now, but that's okay, because you're going to make time for the most important things. And I think that's really important practice. If I didn't do that, it would be really hard. And don't get me wrong, it's still difficult and still challenging, and I fail a lot, but I think that practice has really served me, and I'm just continuing to try and get better and better at it, to be honest with you. So anyway, that's a long way around me answering that question, but hopefully that made sense.
Lawrence, just go a little deeper. Give us a little bit
Yeah.
on how do you balance it specifically with the kids? Like, do you have any best practices and I'm making this up, when I'm with my kids, I don't have the phone out. I don't carry on a conversation while I'm holding my phone. I mean, so with your partner and your kids, how do you try to show up? What are you intentional about there?
Yeah, so the phone is always in like the foyer, right by the front door. It's nowhere near me. I will never sit there with my phone out with my kids. It's just, we don't have any screens for the kids, right? So that's quite unusual. They're 3 and 5
You're
years old.
amazing.
But
Wow,
we
that's
do
amazing.
have, but we're not perfect. They do watch movies, right? I think, in fact, they might be watching a movie right now because we had a huge storm in Ireland overnight and the schools are closed. So they might be downstairs watching a movie as we speak. But we don't have screens. We're very big on having meals together, right? Ritualizing that, right? And so every morning at breakfast, we'll set a table. Every time I pick them up from daycare and bring them home, we always have a meal together. No phones. The missus sometimes will have her phone out, and I'll just be like, hey, we shouldn't be having our phones out right now, and it's because everything is on our phone. It's really difficult, right, to always have it away. What else is there? What else were you saying? You asked me, sorry. You said about what do I do with the
Well,
phone? And you said,
specifically, yeah. So when you're with your partner, when you're with your kids,
yeah,
is there anything that you say, hey, I want to be intentional about this?
yeah. There's another thing that reminds me. If it doesn't go into Canada, it doesn't happen, right? So what I'm really intentional about is, again, it goes back to what I was saying about investing in your relationship and nurturing that. It's very easy when you have children and when you're busy in your business that you don't make time for each other. Because when you're with the kids, it's like, and a lot of people will be able to relate to this, but it's like they are obsessed with the primary caregiver. So they're always asking Ashling, my fiance, questions all the time. And so if I ask questions and I start having a conversation, it overwhelms her. So what I make a habit of doing is every single month we schedule a babysitter once a week on a Saturday, and we do it for the whole day. We don't do it for the evening. We don't go out and drink. We don't really drink anymore, to be honest. It's just like a full day thing, right? Where me and her will go for lunch together and spend a whole day out. And it's so important for us to have that time. And so every single month, it's like autopilot scheduling, right? It's in the diary. It's once a month. It's just me and Ash. You know, babysitters aren't cheap, and we do end up spending money out too. So it's not a inexpensive thing to do, but we feel it's very important. And then once a week, we'll have a movie night. So once a week, we get together, and that's how, we'll watch a movie together during the week as well. And then obviously on the weekends, we're doing all family stuff, but it's not the same as having that one-on-one time. And then I will I think that's useful for me to talk about this tactically. But then also every Friday afternoon, we'll have time together where we'll grab lunch or just spend time together, and that's in the diary. It's blocked out. No one can book a call there or a podcast. It's protected. And it's just, again, it's another, I don't know, everyone's a big fan of Dr. Jordan Peterson. I respect that. But another thing he says, which I think is so true, is life is not the big things you do together. It's the small things. It's, do you say hello to each other in the morning? Do you make coffee for each other? Do you say goodbye? Do you ask how work was today? It's those small habits. And I say this because I need to hear this as much as anyone else and be reminded of this, because I don't always do it. That little Friday afternoon block where me and Ash spend quality time together, I think we've missed that the last 2 weeks because of life happening, right? Stuff comes up. And so I need to be reminded as much as the next person. But yeah, it's doing these simple things and having a discipline around it is key. And that's how I balance it. And look, there's no, you have a good phrase for this, work-life harmony, which I think you stole from Jeff Bezos. Is a good one, a good label, because you're not going to be able to get it perfect, and stuff's going to just not get done. And you have to just look at your own personal situation and context and do the best you can with your resources.
Yeah,
And that's
that
how I
was
feel about it.
really, really valuable, Lawrence. Thank you for that. Are you okay if we continue for about 8 more minutes? Do you have
I'd love
that
to.
time?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I have 3 or 4 questions. Before I get to another question, Patty Durrell said, Lawrence, your passion for HIT and helping other people be successful is admirable. Thank you for helping me, my team, and the masses in the HIT community. May it all come back to you in abundance. That's from Patty Durrell.
No, that's amazing. Thank you, Patty. That's amazing to hear that. Yeah.
Okay. So my next question is, your listeners love you. Like Dave Lando told me recently, when we were getting ready for Strength Forum, he called me and he said, Lawrence is going to be there. Lawrence is going to be there. And it was like, man, it's not a party unless Lawrence is there. We all love you. And I think it's because you've done a wonderful job coming alongside all of us as an ally. We want to help you. So tell us, how can we help you be a customer of yours and help your business grow? I want 3 ways. And, I'm kind of thinking about this in terms of levels. Like, what are the 3 ways that we can engage with you? And those engagements are different levels. So tell us 3 ways that we can get more of you, be a better customer for you, engage with you in a way that helps your business grow.
Wow, what an amazing question, Luke. I love jumping on the phone with everyone in our space, people who aren't even in our business yet, haven't even, I had a conversation with a gentleman yesterday in North Kent in the UK who has had a really challenging past and has kind of come across a high intensity training in the last couple decades and is now thinking about starting some kind of HIT personal training business in his kind of later years. Like, he's in his 60s now. And I love that. I love hearing about these people who are like discovered HIT and want to start a business later on in life. And again, it doesn't have to be a big business, it could be a small thing. But it's about generating an income, sometimes very good income, doing something that's extremely meaningful. I always remember what you said during COVID when you were part of your, one of the networking groups you're part of. I can't remember the name now. But where all the lads said, Luke's the only one who does anything really important here. Because I think they all sell, luxury cars or stuff like that. And then you're the one really transforming people's health. So where am I going with that? I just wanted to say, like, anyone wants to jump on the phone. I have have availability in my schedule right now, and I find it very productive to learn about what people want to achieve at all levels of this business. So whether you're like a super successful studio owner and you just want to streamline processes or simplify things or grow or whatever it is, increase profitability, or if you're someone who's just thinking about getting into this, um, I enjoy those conversations, right? And I always try my hardest to deliver as much value on the call as I can. And obviously, if I feel that you're a good fit for one of our programs, I'll obviously suggest it. Um, I guess connected to that, it would be remiss if I didn't promote high intensity business. So we've got a wonderful community on School, which is amazing and is very active. Even Dr. Doug McGuff is in there helping out everyone with their complicated client challenges, which is so amazing to see. And I recently changed the price point of that community because whilst I was actually, it was actually suggested to me to make it more expensive by several people in our space because obviously, it's higher perceived value and it's more profitable and all the rest of it. And there's more emotional investment by the customer. I don't need to elaborate on all of that. But well, number one, frankly, it is a very small market, the higher end hit studio market, but also I am more passionate about helping that full spectrum of hit professionals. And so by having the price at $99 per month, I felt was far more fair. And not fair is the wrong word, far more viable for everyone in our space to get everything they possibly need in terms of resources, support, group calls, courses, all the rest of it to realize the success they want in their own high intensity training business, whatever that looks like. And my goal, much like a lot of the most successful, I guess, software businesses or subscription businesses, is trying to create the biggest discrepancy between price and value that I possibly can. So I want to make it I feel like it's already a complete no-brainer, but I'm trying to just continue to create bigger and bigger sort of value, discrepancy, just create more and more value for that investment is where I'm going with it. And I'm
Lawrence,
extremely, go
by the
ahead.
way,
Yeah.
I can sense I've met very few entrepreneurs. I don't know if I've ever met an entrepreneur that's more concerned with continuing to add value. Sometimes I look at all the things that you're adding and I'm like, hey, you could probably just coast and this is definitely worth it. But you continue to layer in more value. So you're the embodiment of what Bezos talks about. Just think about your customer and how can you provide more value and serve them better. So I didn't mean to interject, but you do that so wonderfully well.
Thank you. Yeah. And I still think there's so much more opportunity. I mean, I wanted to talk to you about doing a series on the workout is the marketing, like actually breaking down each one of those elements and doing like a mini series on what could be the most important series in our entire space. But we'll talk about that offline. It's the other thing as well is I love when I get this is just an entrepreneurial tendency, isn't it? When you hear a problem and you hear that problem a number of times, I get really excited about reaching out to someone like you and saying, hey, this is happening. I mean, we're doing something recently, aren't we, about the it factor, trying to find trainers with that it factor or cultivate that. And it's like I get so much satisfaction out of seeing a problem and then solving it. And obviously that's the same in all of life, but particularly in business, it's very fulfilling, right? So there is that too. And obviously, goes without saying, I would like to build a successful business that's, financially successful and all the rest of it too. But
yeah.
So
well, let me summarize maybe what you said. I said, hey, 3 ways that we can, be a customer of yours and support everything you're doing. So in my opinion, when you see someone providing so much value and when you like them, it's just easier to root for them. Like I want you to be wonderfully successful. You are wonderfully successful, but I want to, say 10 years from now, wow, look, I can't believe Lawrence is making so much money. He deserves it. And that's how I feel about you. So my quick summary is we should all be listening to the pod and providing reviews. Okay, that's 1. Schedule a call with Lawrence. That's 2. Be a member of HIB Business at $99 a month. And then the last one I think is consider being coached by you. And it's my opinion, Lawrence is probably embarrassed that I'm bringing any of this up. He did not ask me to do any of this. I think you are uniquely positioned to talk to someone who has 0 equipment and 0 experience and they want to do something, all the way up to someone who's got 8 locations and they're thriving. I feel like you're the one person that has the skill set to help both of those ends of the continuum. So some coaching with Lawrence is a wonderful option as well.
thank you so much.
Yeah, give me this answer in 1 minute. Socrates says, know thyself. Who is Lawrence and who are you becoming?
Oh my God. A father, entrepreneur, future husband. I guess that's becoming. A great partner. That sounds arrogant. That's the becoming. uh, who am I? A student. Um, yeah, those are the four. And then who am I becoming? A a great father. I guess this is the goal. A great husband. A great entrepreneur. Not to want to use the same adjective on every single word here. And a contributor more than just entrepreneurship, but more in a altruistic sense, like charitable, and towards my community. I don't do enough really with my community. So some kind of like, you know, community builder. I don't know whether these are good answers. I've never had a question like this. This is just what comes to mind.
Yeah, it's
Like, I
wonderful.
mean, I try to be a great friend. I will say, back to your question about balance, very hard to do it all at once. I have not been a great friend, I would say, to my friends. Not in terms of like I've done anything wrong, but I just haven't been cultivating that as much over the last couple years. And that's just something has to give, right? I really, really badly want to achieve my business goals whilst building a very healthy and productive family and making them the best they can be. Really hard to add anything to that. Right? So,
Interesting. James
yeah,
Clear did some comment on this recently saying you can have a thriving business, you can care about your health, you can care about your family, and you can care about your friends. You just can't do them all. And I went through an exercise with a bunch of entrepreneurs, and they all said, hey, I've intentionally dialed down the friend component.
yeah.
There'll be a season in life where I dial it up again, but I'm not going to dial down family, and I'm not dialing down entrepreneurship, and I'm not dialing down health. So it's got to be friends at this point. So what you just said, I've heard so many times.
Yeah, it's a book called The Family a Family Entrepreneur or something like that. I think his name's Steve Chow, Chou. I can't remember the name of the book, but we'll link it up. And he talks about that exact concept, the four burners. So family, health, business, and friends, and how you can't have all burning at the same time. But obviously health is everything. And it's what we know in our space is that you can cultivate great health at very little time. There's no excuse, right? So that one should always be burning. And then you know, if you're passionate about business and you know you're at that time of your life, then like that's burning. And then I think family has to. So yeah, something has to give. Now, whenever I bumped into a friend the other day and they said, "Hey, you know, we should all go out for a drink and watch the football, soccer soon." And I just honestly straight up said, "Look, I'm working like a lunatic right now, and I'm just not making time for any of that stuff." And it wasn't natural and easy for me to say that, but it's just the truth. And whilst that person might have been a little bit irritated in the moment, they respect you for, you know, living your values right now. So yeah.
Yeah, the four burners. So that is the concept. So, well, let me wrap up, Lawrence, by saying, first of all, Pete Serquest says, I have immense gratitude for Lawrence's platform, partnership, and friendship. Thank you for creating high
Thanks,
intensity
Pete.
business and giving us all a community where we can share, learn, and grow. Wishing you continued success and looking forward to your 1000th podcast celebration. I'm going to just agree with Dave Landau. When Lawrence is there, it's better. A conference is better when you're there. A meal is better when you're there. You are an expert, an ally, and a friend to all of us. Congratulations on 500th episode and looking forward to the next 500, Lawrence. Thank you for all you do for us.
Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, obviously, if anyone wants to reach out after this, they can go and they can email me, Lawrence at highintensitybusiness.com, or just go to highintensitybusiness.com and hit the contact page. Just I'm thinking some follow up there in case people are interested in booking a call or whatever. Yeah, I mean, Luke, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And let's just shout you out too. So if you want to learn more about you, discoverstrength.com, right? And discoverstrengthfranchise.com. Anywhere
Yes,
else?
sir. That's
Yeah.
perfect. Good town.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. And just to say before we wrap here, this is Lawrence of High Intensity Business and Luke Carlson from Discover Strength. And thank you so much for listening. And Luke, thank you. This has been incredibly flattering and I've really enjoyed it.
My pleasure. Thank you, Lawrence.
This episode is brought to you by Imagine Strength, your go-to for safe, simple, and effective high-intensity training equipment. Growing a successful high-intensity training business requires workout equipment that's not only high quality, but also intelligently designed to fit the unique needs of your studio. And that's where Imagine Strength comes in. Drawing on the wisdom of the legendary Arthur Jones, Imagine Strength has crafted a groundbreaking line of fitness equipment that's as affordable as it is efficient, giving your studio the upgrade it needs without breaking the bank. The team at Imagine Strength breathes HIT. Their passion for high-intensity training shines through in their designs, which they've consistently refined and innovated for optimum effectiveness and user experience. From my personal experience at Rec, I can attest to the careful consideration and craftsmanship that goes into every single piece. My Imagine Strength workout was absolutely brutal, in a good way, of course. Now, what makes Imagine Strength truly stand out? They have innovative equipment tailored for the unique needs of HIT studios, affordable and efficient designs, lowering the barriers to entry for a HIT business, continuous innovation and refinement ensuring your studio stays ahead of the curve. Founder Jeff Turner and his team are dedicated to moving the HIT industry forward and making strength training accessible to more people than ever before. Here's how you get started. Number 1, visit imaginestrength.com. Number 2, discuss your specific needs with the team. And number 3, select the equipment that will propel your business to the next level. Head to imaginestrength.com today and give your HIT business the Imagine Strength edge. Be part of the HIT revolution and see firsthand how their unique equipment can transform your studio's workout experience. Elevate your HIT business with Imagine Strength.
Let's go.